This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jabrukovsky, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. I just finished recording an incredible podcast with Craig Ballantyne, the author of The Perfect Day Formula. He's also the founder of Turbulence Training, and this guy is just insanely crazy in a good way. I mean, he wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning, 7 days a week, and he's known as the world's most disciplined man. So enjoy this show and let's get it started. Welcome, Craig.
Hey, thanks so much, Peter. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and we're on Instagram Live here on your Instagram feed. So I feel the pressure to do really, really well. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut right to the chase.
Sure.
Craig, who are you really as a person?
Well, I'm the type of person who's just like you. I want to help people. I don't know what drives me exactly to go and do that, but every single day I wake up, how can I go and help someone who's struggling? How can I go and help someone make more money or lose weight or whatever it is? Give them the path that is simpler than what they're trying right now. Because when I was younger, Peter, I was always frustrated when I would see somebody else who was frustrated, and I would just think, the path to success is so much easier. Especially when I started in the fitness world, working out as a young man, I thought, this is just really simple. And I would see all these older people, especially at my part-time job, I'd see the women sitting around the table at lunchtime and them all frustrated. And I'm like, no, you just need to do this, this, and this. And so that's always driven me, and it grew from fitness and into business and helping people transform in all those ways, as you mentioned.
That's great. So let's just start about your early life. Can you just talk us through a little bit your upbringings and what made you interested in sports and fitness?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started growing up on a farm in Canada. So farm about an hour and a half away from the big city of Toronto. And up in Canada, we play a lot of hockey, right? So I wanted to be a hockey player, but I found out pretty quickly I wasn't going to be a professional hockey player. And I thought, what ways can I go and live out my dream in the pros? And so I thought about like physiotherapist, or eventually I settled on strength and conditioning coach in the National Hockey League. So I went off to college for that. And I was about halfway through my college career when I stumbled across the opportunity to write for Men's Health magazine. I was actually writing an email newsletter in 1999. I didn't even have a website, but I was sending an email out to all my contacts, all my friends at the gym, and my professors and all these people, about 1,000 people at the time. And I sent one of the newsletters to the editor at Men's Health magazine. And it's a shot in the dark, but he sent me an email back and said, hey, we'd love to publish this one little piece. And that was the year 2000. And it's been 18 years now that I've been working with Men's Health magazine, having my content in the magazine. It's given me critical credibility. And that allowed me to go on and start my online fitness business. And I've been running that for 17 or 18 years. And that's then allowed me to grow into many other things. But that's where I started off, just a poor, broke, struggling farm boy up in Canada with no connections and just a bit of a dream, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you look back at your life. And I think you even talk about it, and a lot of people that I meet talk about it. Sometimes, even though we're those chasers, next thing, yeah. Sometimes we got to see, where do we really come from? And you've certainly come far. What made you go into college? Did you move out of your city, or where did you go to college?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in that little town, and I had the same after-school job for 7 or 8 years. I remember making $3.10 an hour when I got my first job. And then so I moved about an hour away. So it wasn't a big jump. It wasn't like, some of my American friends, they move across the country, or some people, they go internationally as students. I was actually the kind of person who really liked the comfort zone when I was younger. And I could have seen myself working for a company for a long time. It was just once I got the entrepreneurial ball rolling with the Men's Health magazine and the online business that it just became so much fun that I kept on going. But there's a part of me that is scared to do a lot of stuff, scared to do new things and hesitant to do new things. And so for me, it was a big jump to become an entrepreneur where, it was a small jump to leave my hometown and go to the college where I knew a bunch of people anyways. Yeah. But fortunately, I was also able to go to a really good one for my particular degree. So I was very, very fortunate that I got in, that it was close, and that it was one of the world's best for helping me become a strength and conditioning coach that I kind of sort of did become for a little bit.
Yeah. And after finishing college, what was your first gig at that point?
Well, at that point, it was personal training,
yeah.
and at the same time making a tiny bit of money on the internet with my job, with my online business. And then every year that online business grew, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I made the mistake of being too cheap and too stubborn to get a mentor at first. I wish I would have went and got a mentor much earlier. But when I started hiring coaches and reading books and buying courses, my income grew faster and faster and faster. And eventually I was able to make that transition from full-time trainer and part-time online business to full-time online, and sometimes I would still train some people. So it wasn't like an overnight switch, and I would never tell somebody just go quit your job right now if you don't have side income. But I was able to, I was what one of my mentors calls the reluctant entrepreneur, the chicken entrepreneur. You don't quit your job until you know that you've made it.
Yeah. What I really like with you, that you started in the personal training industry. I did that myself. I love training people and coaching people. But one thing that I think is really hard, because all over the world, there's so many young guys and girls that want to become a personal trainer, but then they realize, how can I make this a living, as something good? And I know you struggle a little bit as a trainer. Can you just talk us through that and maybe give a little bit ideas to those people?
Well, yeah, the thing is like, I was not in love with personal training. I was in love with helping people change that way, but I have very introverted tendencies, so I would much rather sit behind a computer and write an article or even make a video. I'd rather make a video than go and actually train people. When I trained people all day long, I was exhausted, because for a person with that type of background of being an introvert, when you give a whole bunch of energy, it exhausts you. Whereas the person who is extroverted, those high energy trainers who are always like that, they almost get more energized the more they train people. So for me, it was actually hard, and that's kind of why I struggled with it. I made a good living doing it, but the personal trainer world is also, you're at the mercy of other people's schedules. And so you're up really early, and then you have breaks in the day, and then you can train kind of late at night. And it's kind of like being a waiter, that split shift. And eventually, once you are a little bit older and you have more responsibilities, you don't want to live that lifestyle anymore. So the great thing is that group training came along in the fitness industry. I own a couple of boot camp gyms now, and we bring in a whole bunch of training clients all at once, 20 or 30 that you can train at once, and that way you can increase your revenue. So for the trainers that are out there listening who are wondering, how can I go from this one-on-one training and make it something more sustainable? It is getting into that group training, whether it's a small group of 4 to 6 people or the bigger boot camps. But you need to figure things out. You can't just be going and waking up and being reactionary every day and doing the same thing and just thinking, oh, someday something's going to change. No, you have to go and make it change.
And Turbulence Training, how did you get that idea, and how did you grow it?
Well, so I was writing all the stuff for Men's Health magazine, and I was also writing these programs for all of my friends who had just graduated college, and now they had no time to work out. So I realized, I would go home from my personal training job and I'd start writing all these programs for my friends. I'd be so exhausted, but I'd be doing it. And then I realized after the 10th one, I'm making the same program for every single guy. Why don't I just put this in a book format or a Word document, which is what I started selling at first. With Turbulence Training, when I started selling it, it was $9.95. It was a Word document. It wasn't even a PDF. It was a Word document. It had no pictures. It just had exercise descriptions and workouts. And then the next month, after I sold a bunch, then I put the pictures in. And the next month after that, I added some more stuff. And I increased the price every month for about 4 months in a row. And by the end, now I'm selling a program for $40 and has additional upsells and bonus and deluxe videos and programs. And I figured out that system. And I actually came up with the name for Turbulence Training on a flight because we were going through turbulence, and I was flying from Salt Lake City to Toronto, and I was like, oh, this is exactly how the body goes through, turbulence when you do a hard workout. And I came up with some stupid idea that a plane has to burn more fuel. I have no idea if it's true or not, but I thought, oh, the plane must have to burn more fuel to get back on its correct path after turbulence, and the body has to burn more calories after you put it through turbulence in a workout. And so I came up with this stupid name that really, it's okay branding. Everybody thinks it's a cool name, but to try and explain it to somebody when it's called Turbulence Training, it was not well named. It's like P90X, like what does that even mean? Fortunately, they did a lot of marketing behind it, but it's much better to have a program with the benefit in the name. Like my friend Mike Geary has a program called The Truth About Abs. Okay, I get it. It's the truth about abs, but turbulence training, what does that even mean? Is that like pilot training? So it was not well named, but I just worked so hard. I was able to sell it to hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, I just went on YouTube today, and one of my YouTube videos has been watched just over 3 million times. Yeah, one video alone, just one video.
That's incredible. And what I really like and enjoy is that you said you sold it when it wasn't even done.
Oh yeah, totally.
And that, I think, we're talking about being that chicken entrepreneur, but it takes guts to do that, and also it gives you motivation. I think sometimes we are trying to create the perfect product, and then we're gonna sell it. But why don't we test the market, and why don't we give us positive pressure to do something, right?
Yeah, I was born. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm very impatient. It can be a curse sometimes, but it can be a blessing. On the other hand, like you said, like I just wouldn't wait around for it to be perfect. I'm like, I wish I would have sold it when it was only, I could charge $7 for it, Like right now, I'm pushing to release a new product, and a few of my team members are like, no, this isn't ready yet, this isn't perfect yet. I'm like, I don't care. When someone complains, I'll fix it. But the content in it is so good, it doesn't have to look, perfect. So I'm the type of person who's get it out there. Sometimes you get a little bit of negative feedback, but I'd rather get it out there because like you said, then you get that sale. And when you get that sale, when you wake up and, oh my gosh, I made $100 overnight, my goodness, your mindset shifts totally. And you're like, I can do this. And then you start working faster and faster and faster, but it's the person who waits and hesitates and procrastinates. They're never going to get that momentum and motivation. And when you don't get that momentum and motivation, you drop off and you quit.
Yeah. I met with Michael Crossland, an Australian guy, just a couple of days ago, and he talked a lot about that. Most people, they go to 50-60% and then they quit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so sad because we never really know what we are capable of, right?
Absolutely. And so I get a lot of entrepreneurs emailing me and saying, oh, I did real estate for 6 months and it didn't work out. I'm like, what do you mean you did it for 6 months? Like, how does anybody expect real estate to work out in 6 months? I mean, this is something you got to put blood, sweat, and tears into for 3, 5, 10 years to get traction. You can't just, I did real estate for 6 months, it didn't work out. I did an online business for 6 months, it didn't work out. Well, nothing's ever going to work out if you only do it for 6 months, You gotta go all in. Like you said, you got to take it past 50 and 60% all the way, for sure.
And I've learned so much because a lot of people, I've done karate since I was 6.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a world medalist and 8-time national champion. But that is something, people always ask me, Peter, do you still do karate? And I look at, what do you mean? This is my life. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Right.
And to have that passion for something is so important. And I love that you're having it. And one thing that I'm really curious, because this was way back, how did you make your first sale of this internet program? And how did you build it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so it goes back to that Men's Health magazine connection that I had. I was very, very fortunate. So again, I was writing an email newsletter. I didn't have a website. I was just sending it out by Hotmail to people. And you could, at the time, you could only send out an email through Hotmail to 50 people at a time, but I had over 1,000 people on my email list. So I had to manually put in the emails 50 at a time and send out the newsletter 20 times. It would take me like an hour to do this. But then I sent one of them to Men's Health magazine. They put it in there. And then in addition to being in the magazine, they said, hey, we'll pay you $300 a month, which was like a lot of money to, you know, a kid just finishing college, to be on the Men's Health message forum. And when I was on the message forum, I'd answer people's questions, and then people would send me private messages and say, hey, can you make me a program? And so that's when I started. Actually, I designed a few private programs first, and I actually charged them like $50 or $60 for it. And then I was like, again, I'm making the same program over and over again. So why don't I just put it into that Word document format? And by then I'd actually gotten a website made, and I had built a real email list. And now I was able to put it up on the website with a shopping cart, and, you know, just send an email to the list and said, you know, here it is, here's the work. And that's when the sales started coming in, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah. And how did you grow it?
I had so much of that Men's Health magazine credibility. Then I just put out a lot of content. I've been putting out a ton of content since 1999, email newsletters, interviews of people, growing and growing and growing, asking people to tell their friends about it, hustling pretty hard on it. And then also, as soon as it got some traction, then all of a sudden, you could set up the affiliate programs where, you know, if you had an email list, you get a link and you tell your people about it, and you'd get a commission, and then I'd get the customer, and I'd grow it and grow it and grow it. And I was fortunate. I mean, my first year of college was the first year that my college had email and the internet. And so I grew up with the first, internet 1.0, and there wasn't a lot of competition. So I was very fortunate that there wasn't 150,000 others like there is now. I mean, my goodness, the competition in the fitness industry and the coaching industry, there's so much out there because, fortunately, guys like me have had success in the past, and everybody says, oh, I want to have success like that too. So I didn't have as much competition back then. It was easier. Now, there was fewer people buying stuff online, but I was fortunate. It was the perfect timing, and I was out there taking advantage of it.
And how, because I met some people that have that one product that created this insane traction, just like yours. Were you ever tired of being the Turbulence Training guy, and how?
Not for a long time. Eventually, I would say about 5 years ago, it was I don't know what else to say. I mean, how many ways can I pair a lunge and a dumbbell press? I mean, I'm sure I've done every single way, right? And so then I got into bodyweight only stuff, and that gave me another few years. Yeah. But after that, it was I really don't know what else to say. I just don't. And I'm not really into the hardcore organic food stuff, so I'm not going to be the nutrition guy. My whole thing was about making it as simple as possible. And so I really truly believe that the first workouts I ever created in Turbulence Training, those are still my best ones. Yeah. Even though I created a bunch of different ones and lots of bodyweight ones, if I had to go and choose one of my workouts to do, I would do the very first ones that I put in the program, because that was the way I loved to train. That's the way I love to train now. It's simple, it's effective, they're the basics, you're going to get great results. And so, I milked it as long as I could. I got a good shelf life out of it, but I don't have a lot more to say about it now. Yeah. And so eventually, also because I wanted to get into the business space, that I ran out of things to say.
Yeah. It's very interesting, and I remember reading in your book, The Perfect Day Formula, that when you hire your first coach, he asked, what do you see your business in 5 years? Mm-hmm. And you said, I wanted to be early to rise. And just a couple of years later, actually 5 years and some months.
Yeah, 5 years, 3 months, 17 days. I was 3 months and 17 days late.
You actually became an owner of that site. And can you just talk us through that, and what ideas you think, how important it is to know what you want?
Oh yeah, so it's super important to know what you want. And then, just to go a little bit more on that story, I finally did hire my first business coach in 2006, and the fitness business was going really well. But I was a subscriber to this email newsletter called Early to Rise, and they help you build your wealth, and they help you, build your online business and even invest in real estate. And I thought, this is more what I want to do, because the fitness is just one thing, but building your wealth and improving your family relationships, that was what Early to Rise did. So it did everything, and I was so impressed by this. And my mentor at the time, he was also a subscriber to Early Rise, and he knew exactly what I wanted to do. He knew exactly what the business was. And so he said, hey, Craig, you need to become a better writer, a better coach, a better speaker. You need to grow your network. You need to get more experience. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and do the work. So I started doing the work. I joined mastermind groups. I went and did my own presentations. I started my own mastermind group. I started writing books and creating courses. So I did all this stuff. And then eventually got the opportunity to buy the business. So I call it not the law of attraction, but the law of action attraction. When you go and take the actions, you'll attract those opportunities into your life. So it all came about because I knew that there was something bigger and something more that I wanted to do. And so you need to know exactly what you want. Like I use this analogy of like going to Disneyland, right? Everybody's going to go to Disneyland at one point in their life, either as a parent or as a child. It's a dream destination for you. And I like to use this little straight line here. So this is your dream destination to go into Disneyland. How do you get to Disneyland? Well, you fly to LA and then you get in the car and you drive to Disneyland. It's a straight line to success. Now, it's the same with your life, Peter. What does Peter want to do? He wants to help 10 million people in 10 years improve their lives and grow their businesses. Great. That's his dream destination. Now he knows exactly what the straight line to success is going to look like. And so when someone comes along and says, hey, Peter, why don't you take some of your time and resources and invest in this real estate project? You're going to go, well, that's not on my straight line to success. So you can say no to the detours and you can stay on that path to going exactly where you want. And that's what I did when I was younger. I stayed on that exact path to going to early to rise. Like, hey, do you want to do this fitness project? No, it doesn't move me ahead to early to rise. So I say no to it. And that, when you get that mentality, now you wake up every day and you're focused. You have clarity, you have boundaries. So many people don't have those because they don't know exactly where they want to get.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I was so excited today to meet you because you talk about being the world's most disciplined man. And I want to talk more about that because my dad, I would say he's the world's most disciplined man because he's been training, he's my sensei in karate. Sure. He's been training every single day for like 40 years.
That's amazing.
And so I'm just so curious, how can a young man decide to create all these rules? Because we talk about structure equals freedom and all those things that we're going to talk more about. But how can a young man decide to do that? Or even decide to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning? Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from knowing that you want to do a whole bunch of stuff and you're really lazy. And so it's like, okay, all right, I want to watch TV. I want to go and drink beers. I want to go and goof around. I want to play video games, but I want to do this more. So if I want to, achieve these big goals and dreams more than I want to do these things, how do I stop myself from doing those things and make this path easier? And it is through systems and habits that make success automatic. So I was waking up at 7:30 and I was like, I don't like this. I feel anxious. I'm wasting my time. I'm not getting that stuff done. Tomorrow I'm going to get up 5 minutes earlier. And I did that week after week after week after week until I settled at about 5:30 for a while. And then I started traveling a lot, flying out to LA from Toronto, and the flight was at 8 o'clock in the morning, but that means I have to get to the airport at 6, and I still want to write for an hour, and I still want to go to the gym. Okay, so now I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And at first it was difficult, and now it's easy. And now I get up at 3:57 a.m. Because I want to be like ready to go at 4 a.m. So I get up at 3:57 a.m. And I'm inspired by guys like Mark Wahlberg, who everybody's loved the Mark Wahlberg movie. He gets up at 3:45 a.m. every day, works out, plays a round of golf every day before 8 a.m. Every day he plays 18 holes of golf. He's like insanely addicted to golf. And then there's The Rock. The Rock gets up at 4 o'clock every day. And so, you can say, oh, I'm never going to get up at 4 o'clock. Only losers get up at 4 o'clock. Well, The Rock, you go and tell The Rock he's a loser for getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to say that because he's amazing. And it's just like, okay, if we want to achieve these big goals and dreams, we can just adjust our schedule to do that. And so getting up for me at 4 o'clock in the morning, it just became the right thing so that I could write my book and do all this stuff that I want to do. Now, some people will be able to stay up late and do it, but most people won't because it takes more discipline to be a night owl because you have to overcome the temptation of Netflix and alcohol and your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, and being tired. And so everybody thinks, tonight at 10 o'clock, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work on my online business. And then 10 o'clock comes around and something else comes up, and the next thing you know, they wake up the next day and go, tonight's the night I'm going to do it. And then the next day, tonight's the night. It never happens. It's actually easier to get up in the morning and do it.
No, I love that. My latest book is actually about morning routines.
Oh, great.
It's released in Swedish and will come later in English, and it's based on the people I met on the podcast, their morning routines. And Also, I've interviewed some people in Sweden, very high on entrepreneurs and athletes. So I'm all about mornings. I haven't come to 4 a.m. yet, but I was thinking about that a couple of days ago when I read your book. It's like, shit, I want to do more in my life. I want to have more impact. Maybe I should take my life a little bit more serious too. Even though in many people's eyes, maybe I take my life serious, but it's not about other people. It's what you want, right? And what type of impact do you want to live in the world?
Yeah, I have this little 15-minute rule. I think, no one needs to get up at 4 o'clock, or not everybody needs to get up at 4 o'clock. But I just say, like, if you get up 5, 10, preferably 15 minutes earlier than what you're doing right now, and that's it. So let's say you get up at 7 o'clock now. If you get up at 6:45 a.m., and you go to your kitchen table and you sit down with a pen and paper and you work on your number one priority in life, whether that's writing a book or whether that's, somebody listening might want to be getting out of debt. If you just sat there and you thought, oh, how can I get out of debt and how can I write my book? Every single day, 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, that's 72 hours in a year of extra. It's like 2 weeks of full-time work on a big project, and you're going to move ahead. You're going to get out of debt faster. You're going to write that book faster. And the reason why I say 15 minutes is because if you go all the way back to when I was a struggling trainer, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I probably didn't have to get up until about 5 to get all the way downtown Toronto to train my first client at 6. But I got up at 4:30 every morning to work on my online business for 20 minutes. And 20 minutes after 18 months, now I didn't quit after 6 months, after 18 months of doing 20 to 30 minutes, first thing in the morning, I was a free man. I had beat the game, as I said to myself, where I was able to make an online income from my online business, full-time income. And it's just that approach. And again, it wasn't like, oh, you got to get up 3 hours earlier. No, just 15 minutes and it'll make a big change.
You can get so much done in so short time. Sometimes when we look at our lives and we think we don't have time, but if we really see what we are doing, the most important things in life might not take that long, right?
Right, and it all comes from training, right? Like you as a personal trainer and with all your background, that you could go and do 5 minutes of hard exercise and you'd be kind of wiped out because you have that knowledge. Now, most people think, oh, I don't have 30 minutes to go to the gym today, so it's not worth it, or 30 minutes to go and do bodyweight exercise. What do you mean 30 minutes? You could have an amazing workout. And so most people don't know that. And it's the same with, oh, I don't have an hour today to work on my book, so I'm not going to work on it at all. No. Go and do 10 minutes. Go and do 15 minutes. You chip away at it. Like back when I was a trainer, I used to, write articles while standing in the subway car. So it's, 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you're going home, it's packed in Toronto, and I'd be like standing in the subway car writing on my old BlackBerry articles that I would publish on my website the next day. I would work in what's called the slivers of time every single minute so that nothing was wasted because, again, I had this big goal, this big clear dream, and I knew that what can I do right now? What can I do right now to move ahead? And I'm sure everybody has this in their life where there's an opportunity for them to take better use of their time and make every minute matter. And when you do that, that's how you make those big leaps.
Yeah. And what do you think is so special with you? Because you found that drive. I mean, if we look at mankind, most of us have some kind of idea of a dream or something that we want to do, but there's so few that actually are willing to go the distance and to find that straight path that you're talking about and to actually do it. What's so unique with you think?
I think that I was very fortunate. Early on, I knew what I wanted to do, and I also just had the motivation and drive. And I think everybody has the motivation and drive inside them. Everybody has a passion, and everybody, like you'll find someone, especially in this area, we're down in California, people who will get up really early in the morning to go surfing. But then, they might not get to work on time. And it's like, okay, how can this person go and surf at 6 o'clock in the morning, but on other days when there's no surf, they can't get up and go to work for 9 o'clock. And it's just they haven't matched their internal drive with something external. Or they haven't dug deep enough to find like, hey, you know what? Life is really about helping others. And you and I, Peter, are fortunate for this, like, our missions are not about, hey, let's make $10 million. No, it's about, on the other side, let's help 10 million people. And along the way, we'll have more than enough money because we'll have helped people in so many ways. So let's go out and help other people. And so I think that the more people just do more introspection and self-reflection, they're going to find that thing that really matters. And don't worry if you don't have it at 20 or 25 or 30 or even 35, as long as you're looking for it. You hear about these great success stories later in life when someone completely changes their career at age 55, 60, 65, and they do great things. And it's okay if you're not super mega richly successful at 40, as long as you're not selfishly living your life and just, wasting it. As long as you're looking and looking, that's what matters the most.
Yeah. And let's go back to the story about Early to Rise. So you managed to become one of the owners, and can you just talk us through how long have you done that, and what's your next thing? What do you want to do with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 2011, because 2006 was when I hired the coach. We set that 5-year goal. I got the business in July of 2011, so I guess we're coming up on 7 years now. And we've continued to grow that business, and then I wrote the book, and the book was published in 2015, and we started brand new coaching programs around it. So that's why I'm here in California. We're doing some great workshops, and my goal is to grow the biggest coaching program in the world that helps small to medium sized companies and entrepreneurs and executives of those companies to become more productive, to give them clarity, boundaries, and focus so that they grow those businesses, 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x, in the shortest amount of time possible. So that's what I'm all about. It's really like, Tony Robbins has coaching businesses. There's a business called like Strategic Coach. I want to be the new and improved version of those coaching programs and help people all over the world. And fortunate, we're starting to take our workshops around the world. We've done some in Australia. We're doing London and Germany this summer, even Cape Town, South Africa. So it's growing and growing fast, and people are starting to implement the perfect day formula into their lives, and that's the next leap for us.
Yeah, it's incredible. And let's talk about the book that you wrote. Can you just talk us through how did you write that book? Because I wrote my first book back in 2013. I just became a world medalist in karate after 20 years of training.
Right.
And after that, I got fired from my job, like 3 weeks later. That was my Christmas gift.
Yeah.
So imagine the highs and lows.
Yeah.
And I decided I want to help people because I always knew I wanted a business. And I wanted to do coaching. I wanted to do speaking engagement. So I found out like, okay, if I look at all these people that are doing this, they have written a book. And I was like, okay, if I write a book, people will think I'm smart. And I didn't know that much. So I decided to write a book about goal setting, the goal book.
Got it.
And I wrote that book in 40 days using the same tools that I talk about in the book, how to achieve your goals, just to show that you can do it in any area, even for a guy who'd never written a book. So I'm curious, what was your process in doing this book?
Oh, it was messy. It was not 40 days, I'll tell you that much. But it was figuring out what's the best outline for it. And then, because I could talk about so much stuff. That was the problem, is like, what do I narrow it down to? So it was me and my business partner, my friend Matt Smith, who helped me buy Early to Rise. And we would have dinners and we'd be like outlining it. And he'd be like, well, you should have this in there and this in there. And so I went and I did it all wrong. I didn't have the right outline. Now I talk to my friend Ryan Holiday and he says, no, you have to start with the right outline first, because I'm just finishing another book that'll be out in a couple months from now, and doing it the right way this time and doing it a lot faster. And so I wrote, as I mentioned before this interview, Peter and I were talking, and I said, I wrote 300 pages. I sent it to the editor. He sent me back 110 pages. So I put way too much stuff in. Fortunately, I used that on my website, the other stuff, but I just didn't have a really good focus. And so I probably spent about 18 months writing it and just ending up with all this content. And I was like, I'm going to add this and add this. And I have good memories of writing it because I love writing, and I wrote it in my trips to Europe. I remember writing chapters in Rome and the rest of the places. And then I remember finally in August of 2015, the final edits were done. I was in Istanbul, Turkey at the time, and I remember the sun was coming up, and I pressed send on the final email to the editor. And so that was like a magic moment for me. So it was finally done I probably started about the same time as you did in 2013, but took a lot longer time. And I was putting in all my lessons because I trained so many entrepreneurs from 2007, which is when I started coaching people, to 2013. All those years of lessons and I want to talk about this person and what they learned. I want to talk about this person. And so that's why there's so much content in there, but that's where it all came from. Plus the systems that I built to make me go from, lazy to super motivated and disciplined and productive. So I had all that stuff in there, and eventually we narrowed it down, really polished it into a nice gem. And so as you mentioned, you can read it very fast or listen to the audiobook in about 90 minutes. And, we've been able to get that out to like over 25,000 people around the world. And so it's been a real game changer for my own life, plus all those other people as well.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed the book. I read it in like 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And what I really enjoyed was that it was really cutting to the chase. This is what you can do, and this could actually improve your life. And I like that. I don't like bullshit too much.
Right. Yeah. But you wouldn't want a book about productivity that's 500 pages long, right?
So, but there's a couple of things I want to touch base on regarding to the book. So you talk about structure equals freedom. You can just talk about that and why you have like these rules and set frames in your and systems in your life, and why should you have that?
Right. So I talk about two paradoxes in my book. So I talk about the paradox of freedom, or I probably talk about my speeches more now, but the paradox of freedom, which is what I had when I went and was able to go from full-time trainer to full-time online business owner. Then I had the paradox of freedom, which is I could work whenever I wanted, I could go out whenever I wanted, I had no boundaries in my life. And then that's when I ended up with these really bad anxiety attacks that sent me to the emergency room a couple times because I was working too much, I was partying too much, I was hungover, I was having too much caffeine to get back to normal, and it all caught up with me. I just wasn't getting enough sleep. And I remember it was around Christmas time because I was working a lot and there were so many Christmas parties and then New Year's. And it was right after New Year's that I had my first anxiety attack. And so then I realized, you know what, I got to put systems and structure into place. And the more structure I put in, like this is your quitting time, this is your start time, this is how often you're going to go out, this is how much alcohol you're allowed to have when you go out. And when I put that stuff into place, all of a sudden I had true freedom because now I was healthy and wealthy again and I was doing great. And it's like, oh, this is how you live a much better life. So for a guy like me, I needed that structure. And you need that structure whether it's in your diet or your karate training or whatever it is. Like even in a play on Broadway, they don't just go up there and make the lines up every night, They have practiced. It is scripted. Everything is choreographed to be perfection. And so that's what structure brings to our lives so that, we're structured in our days to do great work so that we're free at night to go and spend time with our friends and our family and really enjoy that. So that's what I teach in my book. And that is the approach that is so helpful for so many people that, they kind of resist it at first, Peter, but when they finally get it and go with it, then I get these letters. Oh, at first I thought you were so full of it, Craig, but now when I started trying your systems, it's been a life changer.
When we hear this, our first thing would be like, fuck, it's so boring. Right?
Exactly.
I had like a neighbor here coming in and he came in and said hi, and I just said, I'm going to have the most disciplined man in the world here. He wakes up at 4 a.m. and in the morning, and he was like, when does he go to bed? I said, when I've read 8, he doesn't have a family, right? It's like, but there's so much prejudice because you don't even want to think about doing these things.
Right. But I mean, like again, Mark Wahlberg has 4 or 5 kids, and The Rock has 3 kids, and I have clients who go to bed earlier than me that have 3 kids, and it can all be done. It's just people are very resistant to anything that's like that. And I mean, listen, you don't have to do it to be successful, but if you aren't successful, doing what you're doing right now is not going to work. You have to change something. Yeah. And so that might be a place to start.
Yeah, no, I love that. And also for me, like we are doing something. We're trying to change what people are thinking about. We have to set an example ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we can't live a good life, if we are not disciplined, why should people listen to us, right?
Yeah. I use this little phrase that I live by extreme example. So, people always say you got to live, lead by example. No, I live by extreme example. I don't expect everybody to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if everybody got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it would ruin everything for me, because the whole point of being up at 4 o'clock in the morning is that nobody else is up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so that other people will get up 5 minutes earlier. Right? So they won't hit the snooze button. So they'll get up on time. So they'll get to work early because, listen, whether or not you're a night owl or you're an early morning person, the world is built around 9 to 5-ish. And so, if you're going to get home at 6 o'clock at night and then you're going to have dinner and then you're going to put the kids to bed and then you're going to have time with your partner or spouse, you're not going to have time to do anything at night. If you want to make the gains, they generally have to be done early in the day before people start competing for your time. So that's what I just want you to consider, consider it if you're not getting the results that you want.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit curious. I had one of my followers asking this question: how do you do, like, when the days when you feel really tired in the afternoon, or do you never get dips? Because if you wake up, do you ever sleep in, or how do
I
you
don't sleep in. What I do is, there's probably 2 nights a week when I'm out late, and actually recently it's been a lot more nights. I'm fortunate that if I do 6.5 hours of sleep, I'm totally fine on it. Not to say that you should, but I am fine on it. And the thing is, the thing that made the biggest difference for my all-day energy was when I started going to bed and getting up at the same time every single day, 7 days a week. So when I was younger, 28, 29, 30, I would sleep in till 10 o'clock on the weekend. And then I would toss and turn in bed on Sunday evening and not be able to sleep well. So Monday morning I was tired. Tuesday morning I was still tired. It wasn't until Wednesday I was back to normal. And I was sick and tired of it. And my mentor, the guy who owned Early to Rise before me, he said, listen, just go to bed at the same time every single night of the week and get up at the same time every single day of the week. So on weekends you don't sleep in. And I was like, okay, this sounds really boring, but I'll try it. And my goodness, I was no longer tired at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was the number one thing I did for all day energy. It was better than exercise. It was better than eating right. This, was really the game changer for me. And so now I probably have about 50 milligrams of caffeine a day. I don't drink a lot of coffee. As I mentioned before, I've never had a coffee in my life. I don't drink a lot of caffeine. So it's not the caffeine that keeps me going, but it is just the rituals and routines. So all of it combined, the going to bed at the same time every night, the eating right, the exercise, and when you treat your body like that, you're going to do very, very well. And you're not going to have those huge shifts in energy levels. And if you need a 5 or 10 minute nap, that's fine, but you shouldn't be exhausted in the afternoon. And that's how I'm able to do it.
And what type of sacrifices do you feel you had to have done to become this man?
Well, I should have sacrificed earlier. That's the thing. I mean, I was still going out till, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when I was 28, 29, 30 years old, at least once a week. And I look back and I was like, what was the point of all that stuff? I wish I would have sacrificed earlier. Now, what do I sacrifice now? I can't think of that much because the people that I hang around with have very similar schedules and they're my best friends. So, I mean, maybe I should go to a few more concerts, but at the same time, I don't like the hassle of going to concerts. So, I try and go to like a concert or two every year and enjoy myself, but I like my life and I don't feel like I'm sacrificing too much of it right now. In fact, I look at it the other way. What am I sacrificing in terms of legacy by not living according to my plans? So, if I would have been more productive earlier, I would have got my book out earlier. I'd have helped more people. So again, going back to, the approach that you and I have, we're focused on the other person. We're not focused on ourselves and all this happiness and junk like that. No, we're focused on how can we go and live a life of legacy where people will read our books when we're gone. We'll be changing people's lives when we're gone. And I mean, maybe that doesn't mean anything either, but that's what I'm interested in, and that's what you're interested in. And so the sacrifice is not about what am I missing out on, but what are other people missing out on because I'm not sacrificing enough.
Let's touch base on that because I'm curious how you think when it comes to legacy. Is legacy important to you, and how much do you think it has to do with ego?
Oh, I have a huge ego, that's for sure. And I think legacy is important to me. Like, I want to write a book that people are going to read and pass along for a long, long time. And I would say my first book, you know, if I accomplish nothing else in my life except for my first book, it's not my first book because I have some fitness books, but the Perfect Day Formula, like, that is my life's work. I have another one coming out soon that's going to help with entrepreneurial anxiety and help people get more structure and clarity in their lives. And that's going to be another step. But I want to write a couple more books like that. I know that I've got them in me. Yeah. So that is the legacy that I'm after. I'm after also family legacy. I really love being around my family. I love the idea of having a family that gets together at important holidays. So that's the stuff that drives me, and that's the legacy. And again, who knows what this is all for? I don't know. You know, it's like maybe we're supposed to just be hedonistic. I don't know, but this is what I'm doing it all for. And at the end, we're also just specks of dust, because I read a lot of history books, and you look back and, like, you know, there was a time when, you know, the Roman Empire was around for like 1,000 years or whatever it was, and nobody can even remember the names of most of the emperors, but those guys were a big deal back then. So in 1,000 years from now, what we're doing, whether we're going to a concert or writing books, probably not going to matter. So getting pretty philosophical on you here, but yeah. For me, I'm just going to do this. I love writing the books. I love, you know, the reward from going after my legacy matters more to me than the short-term reward stuff.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I'm attracted to the feeling of someone somewhere, sometime, that will see my work and change their life. I'm attracted to that feeling.
Yeah.
I can't deny it. And it's an amazing feeling, right?
It's unbelievable. The best feeling, I'll tell you what, is when you have your first live event with 100, 200, 300, 400 people. When you have all those people come to the event and say those words to you in person, my goodness, it's like being the person giving the concert with 10,000, 20,000 people in the room. That is the best feeling.
Yeah. So do you think this all goes back to, like, the mindset of wanting to be an athlete, like a hockey, like being that, like, winner, that killer?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a competitive thing and an ego thing, and you know, my ego is like my impatience. It's good and bad. Sometimes it gets in my way of asking for help, but it drives me. I want to be the best that I can be. Then I realized that a lot last year, actually. There were some days when I was disappointed in myself, and I thought, you know, why am I disappointed here? And I realized that I was not performing at my highest level personally. I was not doing my best because I was doing too much. I was writing articles for this website and doing videos, and I thought, you know what, my articles on this website are not getting as much attention as my friend who writes articles for the same website. Why is that? Oh, it's because that's almost all that he does, and he's able to put 95 to 99% of his effort and energy into it. I'm only able to do it 80% level, so I'm not getting the results. So I realized I needed to be the best at less rather than mediocre at a whole bunch of things. Yeah. And so when I put that mindset into place and started getting back to the competitive mindset of being successful, of winning, that everything started to become more successful to me. So I'm always driven by being the best that I can be, not necessarily the best in the world, but the best that I can be. That's the most important thing to me. And I think since I've had that realization, it's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, I think that's hard also. There's a lot of people out there growing their business, like they're entrepreneurs or they're side hustling. How do you manage? Because you have rent to pay, you have, like, how do you manage to grow something? Maybe there's when the mornings come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, go to your mentor, go to the books, go read the biographies of people who you want to be similar to. Go and study the businesses that you want to be similar to, and try and get some information passed down from those people. If you have to pay for it, if you can pay for it, do so. Buy the courses, buy the books, because it'll shortcut your success. And by shortcut, I mean, it won't give you like tricks or tips, but it'll give you the information that says, hey, you know what, don't go down this path, you're going to end up screwing up. Go down this path, it's the right way. You have to go and do that research. You have to figure that stuff out. And that's how you're going to get ahead faster in your side hustle. If you try and figure things all out on your own, you're going to be that person who works all day and works all night and is frustrated. You're not going to figure it all out on your own. Everything's been done before. You know, if somebody wants to climb Mount Everest, they don't make up a new route up Mount Everest. They go up the route that everybody's taken before them at the right time of year. They don't try and invent something new. So it's the same with business. Find something that is working, that you can go and model, get the information, get the mentor, and that is going to help you out. So that's how you'll be able to turn that side hustle into, like I did, a real full-time career doing what you love.
Yeah, it's incredible. And who do you model? Who is mentoring and helping you to do all this? You're traveling all over the world now, doing these events and workshops.
Yeah, so I model my clients. I learn a lot from them, but also my mentors include Bedros Keuilian, who's a good friend of mine. We run a thing called the Empire Podcast. We run masterminds together. I learn a lot from him. My friend Joel Marion, who's very successful online. My business partner, Matt Smith, I learned from him. I learned from my mentor, Mark Ford. I learned from a guy named Dan Kennedy, who's a very big guy in the marketing world. And then I'm just in a couple of masterminds, one with this guy, Joe Polish. That's how I met our friend Sharon.
Yeah.
And, I actually learn a lot from the young guys now. My friend Jason Capital, who's about 30 years old and very successful. So I'm just learning from everybody. There's a girl here in the Santa Monica, Venice area named Amanda Bucci. I learn a lot from her. So I'm reading and studying all the time, and I'm not gonna say, I don't want to learn from that person. I'm gonna learn from everybody possible.
Yeah, grow or die, right?
Yeah, exactly. My goodness, I'm fortunate that I'm putting that ego aside more and more and more to go and ask for help, because that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's hard. I have a hard time with that too, because sometimes I feel like I have to have all my shit together, and it's hard to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah, and it really is. And you got to, like, the people that come to my workshops, I give them so much credit because they share so much stuff with me, and it can be hard to overcome that and, say, well, like, hey, things are not working in this area of my life or in this area of my business. I feel like I should be more successful. I think that's the hardest thing for entrepreneurs to admit, is like, because so many other people are successful, you're like, why am I not that successful? And so it is difficult to overcome that. But, if you can set yourself that aside, and the people who go and ask for the most help, they're the ones who are often the most successful.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And how do you work with goals? What's because I know I'm big on goals.
Yep.
And one thing that I liked in your book, you talked about these 90 days goals, like shorter goals that you actually can touch base on really fast. Can you just talk about how you work with goals personally?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I made a big mistake of setting too many big goals for the year. I remember one year in like 2007, I had like 2 pages of goals for the year. And then at the end of the year, I think I accomplished a few of them, and I felt really crappy because that was still like a small percentage of the list. So I realized 2 things. One, set fewer goals, but bigger goals. And if you set like this one major goal for your health, and not like 15 goals for your health, but one major goal for your health, you'll accomplish that one, and you'll accomplish a lot more than if you try and spread it around. So first of all, fewer goals. And second of all, let's just focus on 90 days, because we can, if they're a year-long goal or 2 years or 3 years, that's a vision, and that's like something that you are aiming for, but it's not really a goal. A goal needs to be short-term, because we want to leverage the power of deadlines and clarity and specificity and measuring stuff. And so I like to keep it to 90 days, because most people can, if you think about 90 days, it's 12 weeks. You can commit to anything for 12 weeks, whether it's a diet change or a transformation or something like that. It's a fairly long time, but you can really go hardcore for 90 days.
You can make a lot of impact.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Even in 30 days, you can make a lot of impact. And so recently I did a 30-day video challenge on Instagram. I challenged my followers to do a video per day, selfie video per day, and a few of them have gone through it and said they've made dramatic changes in their ability to stand with the camera in front of them. Because so many people were like, oh, I hate doing this, I don't want to do it. But every single day, 1 minute for 30 straight days, and I gave them different topics and different energies and emotions to express, and they became really great on video, and they've transferred that over into their business, and now they're making money with it because they got better in such a short amount of time with focus.
Yeah. It's crazy how I was thinking about this when you have to make decisions. If you have too much time, it's almost like it's not important. But if someone would hold a gun to your head, it's like, make a decision now. Oh shit. Or if your baby's crying, or then you know right away. How can we get more of that in our lives?
Yeah, well, when it's a year long, it's so abstract, and it's like, oh, I can wait till tomorrow to start. I don't have to make those hard decisions. And so that's why that deadline is so important. The deadline in your day, I got to get all my work done by 8:00 because I have dinner, or I've got to do my exercise by 5:00 in the morning because after that, there's no time for me. So when you have the deadlines in there, they get you to start taking action. They keep you going through the tough times, and they make you go faster and faster and faster as that deadline approaches. And so we need to have more deadlines in our lives. And that's why that 90-day goal or 30-day goals or 21-day goals or even 7-day plans just make us get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So everybody listening, you need to have more deadlines in your life.
What are your important deadlines coming up now?
So I have one for in a couple of months. I have to finish and turn in my new book and get it done so that we can have it printed for my big event, which is a few months after that. So you have to go through all the publishing and all that stuff. And I asked my team members, I said, what's the latest I can have it done? And they gave me a date, and I'm like, okay, that means I have to be spending a certain amount of time on it each week, whether it's a few hours a day or one entire day. So I've got that hard deadline on the book, and then so it's ready for my big event. And then I also have that big event that I have to fill, so I have deadlines on it, and then also creating all the content for that event. So there's a lot of built-in deadlines for my business right now.
Yeah. And for your personal life?
For my personal life, probably just, I consider writing the books as personal life. So I want to write another little book before Christmas on the 30 laws, my Craig codes, 30 laws of Craig Ballantyne's personal success. So I want to get that done because we have another special event in early December, and I want to give that out to every attendee. So I got another little deadline around that.
Beautiful. And I think having these deadlines make life fun too, right?
Oh yeah, it's that challenge and competitive drive, but really, for me, books are like a painting. It's art to me. It's art, and when you finish any project, you just have pride in it. Unfortunately, because I'm a writer, I sit behind a computer a lot, and people are, oh, you're always behind the computer. Well, yeah, I'm writing, I'm creating art here. Kind of wish I was a painter, because then it'd be like, oh, he's painting, don't bother him, it's fine. Yeah, no, he's painting again, it's okay. I mean, he's just painting, but it's, oh, he's just sitting behind the computer, people always give you a hard time for that. So that thing is what drives me and gets me fired up and passionate about.
And we touched base on happiness a little bit, and we very briefly was like, that's not the key importance of life. Can you just talk about what you feel about happiness? Are you happy? And how do you work with that?
Yeah, I mean, if I am, if I'm not, what does it matter? I mean, there's a quote, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but I had never heard it before until recently. It's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He's basically like, happiness doesn't matter. You should not be chasing happiness. You should be chasing not chasing. You should be doing things that matter. That's what life is about. Forget about this happiness stuff. And so do you think so? Listen, I mean, if all you want to be is happy and your happiness is first and foremost out of everything in life, well, you know what? I don't know if you're going to really accomplish anything. I don't really know how much of an impact and a legacy you're going to have if your happiness is first. If your happiness is the most important thing. Okay. Because it sounds like you're probably going to be doing things, you're just going to be thinking about you all the time. And I don't think you have a huge impact on life when it's about you. I don't know, was Mother Teresa really super happy all the time? Yeah. Maybe she was. Maybe she's just super happy. Or maybe she didn't care if she was happy and all she cared about was helping people. And who do we remember? Do we remember Mother Teresa, or do we remember some lady who spent her entire 80 years chasing her happiness? You don't hear about those people. So I don't really want to be one of those people you don't hear about.
Yeah. It's so interesting what we're talking about now, because it feels like a lot of this generation, we are looking for happiness, right?
There's so many books about it, and you feel like, oh my goodness,
gratification, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're not happy. Oh, your life must suck. like, I'm not happy all the time. So, you know, maybe people out there can say, oh, well, I don't want his life. He's not happy all the time. I don't know anybody who's happy all the time. So, you know, I don't care about it.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion, I want to be happy, but I
don't want to be unhappy, but I mean, like...
I mean, I take steps to be happy, but you're absolutely right. I'm not happy all the time, and I know to get that reward, whatever it is, for me, it's helping people.
Right.
I have to go through certain things to get that happiness, or whatever we want to call it. But it's interesting how we see it differently.
Mm-hmm. Oh, whatever. I mean, I don't spend too much time thinking about it, other than just like, I want to be fulfilled more than happy.
Yeah. And what makes you really fulfilled?
Producing content and doing stuff that I know is going to be helpful to other people. Yeah. To me, that matters the most.
Yeah. And how do you, like, content today, like, there's so much content being produced every day. I was talking with an actress yesterday, how difficult it is now to have something that will be the, like, Titanic, or Think and Grow Rich, that these kind of pieces of art that was done when there was not so much content. Today, how can we make that impact? I'm thinking about that every day, because I want to do the best possible conversations I can, but there are thousands of other guys and girls doing podcasts or writing. What can I do to be seen in this environment?
I think you have to go deeper than everybody else. So, I mean, you have people who have been on other shows, and you have to do the work to study all those other shows and interviews. For example, there's this guy, Ed Milet. He's very successful on Instagram. He's very successful financially, and he's been on a lot of podcasts. But what I did when I interviewed him was I studied him. I studied his stories. I looked for some commonalities, and I was able to ask him a question that he said not only has he never been asked on a podcast, but he's never been asked before in his life. And it was about his father, and he was talking about on a podcast with Bedros about how his father quit drinking when he was 15. And my father was an alcoholic and never quit drinking. And I was like, how do you get somebody to quit drinking? Because that is like the ultimate thing, to get an alcoholic to stop drinking. Like, how do you get a drug user to stop using drugs? That's the hardest thing in the world. And so I asked Ed that, and he said nobody had ever asked me how my father quit drinking. And so we had a really good, in-depth, deeper than normal podcast because of that conversation. And so that's what it is. And you hear the word vulnerability a lot, but you need people to tell their deepest stories. I mean, so one of the reasons why Oprah is so successful is she tells her stories. She's told her stories. She gets other people to tell their stories that they wouldn't tell anywhere else. And that's what you have to get on your shows. And you said that before we even started. You was like, you got to get something out of me. That your goal was to get something that I had never mentioned before. And you know, we've probably done a few things on this interview so that people, because I've done over 200 podcast interviews. I've been interviewed that many times. And you know, people listening to this one will definitely get new stuff from it because you did the hard work and separated yourself from the other people. So it's doing the homework. It's asking the questions. I say it's asking the questions that you know should be asked, but you don't want to ask them because you know they're going to be uncomfortable for either the other person, they're going to be uncomfortable for you. And not only should you ask those questions in the interview, you need to ask them in your personal life, you know, whether you're with your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, partner, brother, sister, family. You need to ask those things because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's why I'm so blessed to do these kinds of conversations, because usually we don't talk about these things. You have done this 200 times now, which is incredible. But most people who have never done a podcast before and talk about all these things, it's like you call it brain dump, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's incredible.
Yeah, and it becomes easier the more you do it. So you want to have guests that are good. They're going to bring energy. You know, you had Sharon on here and he brought crazy energy, because you can have somebody who has an interesting story, but if they have never been behind the microphone before and they're a little uneasy, then it's not going to turn into a great show. So you have to make sure you also choose the right guests. You have to have that rapport with them. There's so much that goes into it, but a lot of it is homework.
On the first podcast that I did, I had an Olympian called Sky Christopherson, and he said something that I really enjoyed. And I think it's correct for almost anyone that are really going after something. And he said, either you're chasing something or you're running away from something. Who are you?
Oh, I'm chasing something. So Ed Milet has this great phrase where he says, I'm chasing the best version of myself. Like, you know, he says, at the end of your life, you're going to look back and, you know, whether you believe in God or not, God's going to say to you, hey, listen, I gave you this potential. This was the best version of you. And you got this far, or you got this far, you know, you reached it, or you didn't, or you were way down here. Yeah. And so I had always been living that way, but he encapsulated it so well in that phrase. And I think when you say that to most people, like one day, you know, I actually put this on an Instagram post on this recently. I said, at some point, you know, in the future, you are going to look back and you are going to look at all the gifts you are going to be given, that you have been given, and you're going to have to basically account for how well you did, and you don't want to let yourself down because you don't want to have regrets of, I didn't play up to my highest level. You know, I was out there chasing my happiness. You know, I didn't write the books, you know, that would have made other people happy. So for me, it's chasing the best version of myself all the time, just like Ed is.
And why is it so important to you?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. Yeah. It's just some people are wired certain ways. And, you know, maybe if I spent 40 hours with a therapist, maybe we'd figure it out. I don't know right now, but that is the way that I'm driven. Now, I know lots of other people who are more driven than I am. Yeah. You know, I've like this guy, Jesse Itzler, very successful billionaire. We've had him on our podcast. And I mean, this guy did stuff that I would never think of doing. I mean, this guy, he was riding his bicycle on the Long Island Expressway in New York City at 2:00 in the morning to go and use studio airtime to record his rap album. I never would have done that. You know, I never would have driven myself that hard, but to him, he drives himself that hard. So everybody's on this continuum of how hard you're going to drive yourself. I'm harder than most, but I'm not the hardest in the world, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I have a question that I ask a lot of my guests, and it's something that I really like for you to imagine. Imagine you're 87 years old and you're sitting in a rocking chair, maybe in one of your favorite places, and you think back on your life. What do you want to have accomplished?
I want to have accomplished, you know, growing a great family. I want to have accomplished writing at least 3 more great books. And really, that is probably the most important thing to me. Family and the legacy of the books. Absolutely. It's the most important thing. It's so simple.
Yeah, I know. And gaining that clarity must feel so good to have that clarity in your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, I spend so much time coaching other people to do it, and so I think about it a lot, so it's really easy for me to see. You know, at the same time, I'm always going to have, you know, those human natures of I want more money and I want more stuff, and fortunately I've been able to travel a lot, so I'm not really driven by, like, I want to travel the world sort of thing anymore, but, you know, I always have to fight the materialistic impulses to go and buy stuff or have, you know, my ego is supported by this car or something. But at the end of the day, I know that it's the books that matter.
Yeah. And I have one more question for you. The people that are watching this, listening to this, if they can do only one thing to get started and get a little bit closer to their dreams and their goals, what would that be?
It's that 15-minute rule. Get up 15 minutes earlier than normal every single day. So if you're getting up at 6:30 now, get up at 6:15. 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week. That's 72 hours in a year of clear, uninterrupted thinking that you can devote to your legacy, to moving ahead, whether it's becoming a better salesperson, writing a book, whether it's to exercise, whether it's to prayer, whether it's to gratitude, whatever it is. 15 minutes a day is an absolute game changer. Get up before anybody else in your house when there's no distractions, no temptations, no electronics, and you will change your life.
I love that. Craig, from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to have you here today and to have had this conversation with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. This is great.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who watched and listening to this. We had Craig Ballantyne here today. I think we had an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot that I'm going to implement in my life. I'm not waking up at 4 a.m. yet, but maybe I can become the 5 a.m. or 4:30, or who knows. I'm getting older, so thank you everybody once again. If you like this podcast, do something with your life and also share it so other people can go further in their life. Check out the Perfect Day Formula. I really enjoy the book and the kit. The book I've read in less than 24 hours, and the kit I'm gonna start working on because the questions in there is really cool. I read through them all, and you've really been thoughtful in creating this kit. So thank you for doing that, and good luck with your workshops here in Santa Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.